So today we're going to do Pythagoras in a circle. For this, we need to understand some key definitions. We need to understand what radius means, we need to understand what diameter means, and chord. So radius is an interval or a line joining the center to the circumference. So it's a center line going all the way to the edge of the circle or the circumference. A diameter is a line or interval passing through the center once again joining any 2 points on the circumference. So it has to go through the center and has to touch 2 points. So it has to touch this point and this point. It could also go like this way around as well. That would also be a diameter because I'm going through the center and I'm touching the point here and I'm touching the point here. And those are the 2 points. A chord is an interval or a line joining 2 points on the circumference. So it doesn't have to go through the center. And that's the main difference between radius and diameter and chord. Chord doesn't have to go through center, so those are the main differences. So now let's start the first question. The diagram below shows the cross section of a milk tank. The radius of the circle, center O, is 1.2 meters, and the width of the surface of the milk in the tank, represented by ml in the diagram, is 1.8 meters. Calculate the depth of the milk. So they want us to work out the depth here, so we're just going to write x here. And they gave us the length for ml, which is 1.8 meters. So I'm just going to label the diagram with the numbers they've given us. So ml is the portion that's here. This is 1.8 meters. 1.8 meters. And the radius of the circle from center O is 1.2 meters. Okay. So the first thing we want to do now is know that half of this has to be 0.9 meters and the other half has to be 0.9 meters because the whole thing is 1.8, and if you do 1.8 divided by 2 you get 0.9 meters. Next thing to understand is about the radius. So when you go from the center of the circle to the edge or the circumference, that is what the radius is, and they've told us this is 1.2. So now we have to do Pythagoras. So this is also a right angle here. So now we have to do Pythagoras. So we know Pythagoras is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this will be a and this will be c. And we're trying to work out b here. So we're going to write, instead of writing a, we're going to write 0.9 squared plus b squared equals 1.2 squared. And now we'll just solve what these numbers are. Actually, first I'm going to rearrange it just to make everything a lot nicer. So I'll write 1.2 squared, take away 0.9 squared. That means b squared equals, I'm going to type it in a calculator now. That equals 0.63. And because this is b squared, we want the answer to be b. So we want b equals, so we're going to have to square root 0.63, which equals 0.79 meters to two decimal places. But they wanted us to know the full depth of the milk. So instead of writing b here, I'm going to write 0.79. So once again, we're going from the center of the circle to the circumference, which means this is also a radius. So I know a radius is 1.2 meters. So I'm just going to write 1.2 meters here. And now we can add these two numbers together. So that would be 1.2 plus 0.79. And that will equal, add all these numbers together. 2 plus 7 is not 1, it is 9. Sorry, let's correct that mistake. 0 plus 9 is 9, 2 plus 7 is 9, 1 plus 0 is 1. So the final answer we get is 1.2 1.99 meters. So final answer is 1.99 meters. And now moving on to question number 2. The diagram below shows a circle, center C. The radius of the circle is 15 centimeters. A is the midpoint of P and Q, and the length of A and B is 27 centimeters. Calculate the length of P and Q. So we're trying to work out what the length of this bar here is, P and Q. Let's put X there. So first we know the radius is 15 centimeters. So this is the center of the circle. Whenever you move from the center of the circle to the edge of a circle or the circumference of a circle, that is the radius. So this part has to equal 15 centimeters. They've told us the total length of from A to B, right? They told us the full length from A over here all the way to B. So all the way from here to A. All of this is 27 centimeters. So if this is 15 and this is 27, then this part here has to be 27 minus 15, which equals 12. So this part here has to be 12 centimeters. We also know that going from the center of the circle all the way, so going from C to Q, C to Q also has to be a radius because we're going from the center of the circle all the way to the circumference, and we already know that the circumference of a circle is 15 centimeters. So after I'm going to put 15 centimeters here. So now we have the length, and we also have the like a hypotenuse. So now I'm going to do Pythagoras, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 15 will be the c value, 12 will be the a value, and a and q will be the b value. So now I'm just going to plug the numbers in. Instead of writing a, I'm going to write 12 squared plus b squared equals 15 squared. I'm just going to rearrange everything just to make everything a lot nicer. That b squared has to equals 81, and we want to work out what b is, not what b squared is, so we have to make sure we square root 81, which means b squared has to equal, b squared has to equal 9. Okay, now instead of writing 9 here, instead of writing b here, I'm going to write 9 centimeters. So we know that a is the middle of p and q, right? So we know it's the middle of p and q, which means we have to now double the number 9. So if this part here is 9 centimeters, this part also here has to also be 9 centimeters. So now we just do 9 times 2, which equals 18. And that's our final answer, 18 centimeters. And now moving on to question number 3. O is the center of a circle below. The radius of the circle is 9 centimeters, and the chord AB has a length of 10 centimeters. How far is the midpoint of the chord away from the center of the circle? So they want us to work out, so this is the chord, A and B is the chord. They want us to work out what this part here is. This is going to be our unknown. And they want the answer given to 1 decimal place. Okay, so first thing we have to do is write down the values they gave us in the question. So the radius of the circle is 9 centimeters. Radius starts from the center to the circumference. So this whole part here is 9 centimeters. They also told us the length of A and B is 10 centimeters. So the length from here all the way to here is 10 centimeters. Because this is, we're going to split this shape in half, or this line in half. This part here has to be 5 centimeters, and this part here has to be 5 centimeters. Now, once again, we can do Pythagoras, because this is a right angle triangle. So this will be C, and this will be A. So now we do A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now we're going to substitute the values in. So we're at 5 squared plus b squared equals 9 squared. And now rearrange the equation to get 9 squared plus 9 squared take away 5 squared minus b squared equals 56. Now it's going to square root that. Square root 56. That means b has to equal. So square root of 56 gets us 7.483 to 3 dp, to 3 decimal places, but they want the answer in to 1 decimal place. That means the final answer has to be 7.5 centimeters. And now moving on to the final question. An oil tank has a circular cross-section of 2.1 meters and is filled to a depth of 3.4 meters. Calculate X, the width in meters of the oil surface. So we've got this oil tank here, and what they've told us what the depth is. Depth here is 3.4 meters. And they've told us that the radius of the circle, so imagine this was the center, the radius of the circle going here is 2.1 meters. They want to know what this horizontal surface at the top is. So we've got the shape drawn out here on the right, here, and they want us to work out what X is. Because this line here is 2.1 centimeters, we can assume this is the center of the circle. Because whenever you move from the center of the circle to a circumference, that's the definition of a radius. So we know this has to be the center of the circle, which means this also has to be a radius. And because we know this has to be a radius because it goes from the center of the circle to the edge or the circumference, we know this also has to be 2.1 meters. We're told here that the whole length here is 3.4 meters, which in this part here has to equal 3.4 take away 2.1, which equals 1.3. Perfect. So now we know this is 1.3 meters. Now we have the hypotenuse, because this is the right angle here. So now we have a hypotenuse. Then we'll just have this as C, and we have this as A. And what we're trying to work out here is B. We just label that part as B. So once again, we'll do Pythagoras. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And now just plug the numbers in. 1.3 squared plus B squared equals 2.1 squared. Now just rearrange the equation. 2.1 squared minus 1.3 squared. That means b squared has to equal. Let me just write in a calculator. Equals 2.72. And now we want to square root that, so we just have to do square root of 2.72, which means b equals 1.469 to 3 decimal places, but they want to know the whole length of x, and x is two lots of b. So x actually equals 2 times the value for b, because this is half of the length, this is half of the line. So now if you just do 2 times our answer at the bottom there, which gets us, so 2 times b, which was 1.69, 1.649, which equals 3.298 meters. And we can just round this up, just make the number a lot nicer and say it equals 3.3 meters. And that is the final answer.